Hello and welcome to Zestology. This is the podcast all about energy, vitality and motivation. I'm Tony Wrighton on quite a windy beach, getting a bit of winter sun, a bit of winter vitamin D, and very grateful and feeling very lucky that I'm able to be here. It's quite windy, so I hope you can hear me all right. And only gloating a little bit recording this podcast intro from here rather than kind of a cold, wet and windy London. And I do feel very grateful, and I do feel myself slowly unwinding. It's a bit of a miracle, really, isn't it, to step off a plane in the middle of the English winter and come somewhere where the sun is out and you can sit on the beach in a pair of shorts, and that's about it. So, life is good here. Hope it is for you as well. Today's podcast is with Niraj Naik. Very excited to welcome him to the podcast. It's all about the power of breath, but not a deep breath. And if that sounds a little bit cryptic, you'll find out why in the podcast. Niraj has plenty of strings to his bow. He's a certified pharmacist turned holistic health and breathwork expert and biohacker and Hay House author and Mindvalley author as well. And he is actually creator of the world's most viral infographic. He's got plenty of strings to his bow. He's also a real entrepreneur, and as you'll hear, I just loads to learn from him. So really delighted and honoured to welcome Niraj Naik to Zestology. I'm going to get back to the beach. I hope that hasn't made you feel too gel, but I do feel very grateful to be here. And for 1 week only, Zestology coming from the beach. Here is Niraj Naik on Zestology. Good. Well, Niraj, we are recording now. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Absolute pleasure to be on here.
It is a pleasure to have the renegade pharmacist on Zestology as well. Thanks for coming on. So I thought it'd be good to ask you about your story first. You hit some incredible lows with your own health, didn't you? Perhaps you could just kind of tell us what happened with you that kind of brought you to this level.
Yeah, I actually got very sick with a chronic illness called ulcerative colitis. It's an autoimmune condition where you get ulcers in your colon. I was literally going to the toilet like 40 times a day for a year, pretty much. I was housebound, so it was a pretty nasty condition to have.
That's awful. Yeah. So autoimmune really means. What exactly does autoimmune mean? It means that the kind of body's just creating it on its own.
So basically, autoimmune is where your immune system starts to attack healthy cells in the body because it's kind of confused at what's safe and what's unsafe. So you literally get degeneration of cells due to your immune system not operating in the way it should. And then that can lead to, obviously, disorders in wherever that immune system is attacking. So in my case, it was the colon. Other people, it might be the joints, and they get things like arthritis. Some people get autoimmune-related diabetes as well. So it really depends on which part of the body is most susceptible. And actually, according to the ancient Indian system of Ayurveda, everyone has a unique energy type, and I know you're all about energy, that kind of corresponds to the things that they're more susceptible to get. And then in Ayurveda, you create a lifestyle plan based on your energy types, which helps you balance and bring yourself into homeostasis so that you don't get disease. That's the idea, that actually all diseases are spiritual disturbance.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that is it, and this is. I mean, it's obviously going really deep into the different meanings of energy straight away, isn't it? And it's quite interesting because I had, quite a lot of time off work with a kind of serious fatigue related illness, which actually doesn't sound anything like as bad as what you went through. But one of the things that really helped me was tapping. So emotional freedom therapy, going to a practitioner who specialized in tapping and NLP and fatigue. And one of the things he said, and I've said this on the podcast before, is he said, it's really hard for people to come to terms with the fact that some of this illness is being created by them. And it's actually a very controversial point of view as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very controversial. I mean, I was told by the doctor that there was, no cure for this, that the only things proven to work are drugs and surgery, and actually I got to a point that was so bad that, because I lost all hope, that she basically said, like, you can go on a drug that hasn't been tested yet, or we can take your colon out. I'm so glad I went down a third path, and going back to the wisdom of my own kind of background as in yoga and meditation and Ayurveda, and actually realize that actually what the real meaning of the word spiritual is and how it relates to your energy, and the fact that E equals M. This is the actual equation of Einstein that was redefined by Hans-Peter Dürr. Einstein came up with E equals mc squared. Hans-Peter Dürr was an extremely respected physicist who had like Vedic scriptures all over his walls. Basically, he said that actually, everything is energy. Energy is matter. So, and the Vedic kind of philosophy is not a religion, it's a philosophy, okay? I don't want to confuse it with dogma and religion. Is that actually, it's a very good, they had an amazing understanding of quantum physics thousands and thousands of years ago, and they came up with this Advaita philosophy, and that your inner world is the outer world. So what goes on the inside is a reflection of what goes on the outside world, and the emotions and energy. If you just think of emotions as energy in motion, your emotions are how we experience and feel life. And actually, the disease is a spiritual disturbance, because when you experience low emotions, low mood for a long period of time, it disrupts the functions, the various functions in your body that depends on energy, and that then manifests as a disease. So a lot like EFT is an emotional freedom technique. It's a way of releasing trapped emotions that have manifested into disease. And I can explain that also biologically. There's many different ways to explain this. So biologically, when you're under a lot of stress, if you're negative emotions, if you hold on to things like anger, fear, hatred, jealousy, envy, all of these things that are actually propagated by marketing people and the media, you just turn on the news and you're bombarded with negativity all the time. There's no surprise that people are, living in a kind of a stressful kind of emotional state most of the time. And what that means is you get contraction. So if you get contraction in your body, it diminishes blood flow to the organs. So over time, if you have contraction, and the contraction is caused by the stress response. So when you are in a fight or flight mode, people are quite often in a flight mode, in a panic mode, where you're paralyzed. You go still, you go stiff. You look at animals in nature, when they're shit scared, they freeze up.
Yeah.
Right? And that's, human beings are pretty much extremely scared of what's going on in the world right now. There's a lot of hysteria in the world that's propagated by the media very unresponsibly. And what that means is that will eventually, that tension, stress in the body, will manifest as a disease, unfortunately. So the whole of yoga, meditation, all of these holistic techniques, the goal of it is to create an inner alignment with the outside world, so that you are in a state of homeostasis and you can be more in your flow, and the tension goes away and you experience expansion. And this was the big paradigm shift that got me onto the path. When I started to understand the body more in terms of energy, and how the energy and emotions are all linked, and how it relates to tension and expansion in the body, everything changed for me. Yeah.
And that's so. It must have been pretty dark times when you were considering having your colon removed. I mean, that's just, that's
Oh, I mean,
unimaginably difficult.
Yeah, I was already like told by the GP that you better wear a nappy because I was going to toilet like 34 times a day and I didn't want to go out, obviously in public, because it's so embarrassing when you shit yourself in public, right? And it happened to me a few times. So I was actually contemplating wearing a nappy. Imagine being 30 years old wearing a nappy.
Yeah.
It was horrible, yeah. And then being told that there's no way to fix this it was just shocking,
Yeah.
for me.
So let's go a little bit more into the kind of nuts and bolts of it then. So you were offered two options. You were offered to try out a new drug that hasn't been tried before, not particularly appealing. Presumably it wasn't particularly a natural kind of botanical drug anyway. And the second one is having your colon removed, which obviously you didn't want to do. And so you decided to turn down both of those options and start your own approach to healing. Yes. And what did you do, and how does that impact on what you do with other people now?
Okay, fantastic. So I actually went back into the ancient wisdom. So it's not my method at all. It's thousands of years of wisdom, and in there, in the tradition of yoga, there is a branch of it called pranayama. Pranayama is actually the most, in my opinion, most fundamental part of yoga, which is missing a lot right now from the mainstream yoga industrial complex that's been created out there. And pranayama basically means energy control. Prana means energy, yama means control. And actually, it was a system of techniques to control the energy in your body. Through that, you will have direct control over the functions of your body, your autonomic nervous system. You can turn on stress, turn it off. You can affect certain functions in your body to create certain results. And through the study of pranayama, I realized how important your breath is to your overall health, because breathing is the one thing that has, firstly, it has the most immediate impact onto your physiology more than anything else, okay, apart from if you take a drug or something like that. But breathing is like the immediate influence on your physiology. So by changing the way you breathe, you change what's going on in the inner world. So pranayama actually has a series of different breathing practices and energy moving techniques, which are like a pharmacy of different breathing practices. And actually, the breathing is also the one thing that we have conscious control over, but also runs on autopilot as well. And the autopilot functioning of the body is controlled by the reptilian brain. Okay? Now, the reptilian brain is the most primitive part of the brain, and all it cares about is survival. So if you actually just allow your breath to run on autopilot and not consciously control it, what happens is you're then at the mercy of your reptilian brain. And if your reptilian brain is constantly sensing danger in the world, which it is, because we're constantly being bombarded with hysteria from the media, impending doom about the future. We have the bills to pay. We have financial problems. We have relationship problems. We may hate our job. We may have bullies at work. It means that your reptilian brain actually starts to make you breathe in a way that you would if you're in a flight or fight situation, which means you over-breathe. And over-breathing, what it does is you breathe in too much oxygen, you breathe out carbon dioxide. So you start hyperventilating naturally, okay? And what that means is that because oxygen, right, it's what is that burns the fuel in your body, the glucose in your mitochondria. The mitochondria is the energy centers of the cells. It's that reaction that produces ATP, energy, which is the currency of energy in the body. So just like a normal fire, like a real fire, okay, imagine the mitochondria is a furnace, okay, burning fire. Too much oxygen, the fire burns too bright and actually can lead to oxidative stress, and is one of the reasons why we need antioxidants in the diet. Too little oxygen and the fire doesn't burn at all. So according to yoga and pranayama, we want the right balance of oxygen, okay, in the body. And in order to get the oxygen off the cells, the red blood cells, we need carbon dioxide. We need the right ratio of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, which has been kind of vindicated and ignored by scientists and doctors because they just don't understand breathing at all. Carbon dioxide, which goes hand in hand with nitric oxide, is firstly the concentrations required to get the oxygen off the red blood cells into tissue cells where we need it for respiration. It also is a dilator, so it dilates your blood vessels, okay? Now, when you're under stress, you get contraction by overbreathing, too much oxygen's a contractor, okay? So simply by learning breath retention techniques or extending your exhalation, where you're slowing your breathing down, what will happen is you'll start creating a relaxation response in the body, a parasympathetic response. Your stress levels switch off, and this is the beginning of learning to meditate. Okay, it's the first steps towards meditation. Now, here's the thing. According to pranayama and yoga, we live a certain number of breaths, and yoga was actually developed by studying animals. That's why a lot of the asanas, the poses are called after animals, like what animals do. Okay, now what they observed was in nature, animals that don't breathe a lot, okay, like tortoises, they live really long periods of time. And elephants,
right, okay.
another classic example. Animals that actually have very low longevity, like rodents, they breathe really fast. Okay, humans have the ability to actually consciously control their breathing. Very few animals can do. Only sea mammals can do that as well. Okay, they can hold their breath underwater. Right? Now, here's the thing. If this is true, okay, then it means that by controlling our breath, holding our breath, lower and slowing down breath, and becoming extremely efficient at using oxygen, okay, and if you look at yoga and you go deep on it, you'll realize that it's all about becoming extremely efficient at using oxygen. Okay, so therefore you need to breathe less over time. It will also explain why Himalayan yogis go up and live in the Himalayas, and why the Nepalese army, the Gurkhas, are some of the strongest people in the world, the strongest army, and who the Americans and British recruit to win their wars. All right, because they live in high altitudes, very low oxygen environments, and they've adapted to having less oxygen. And it makes you stronger, it makes you live longer, and makes you live without as much disease, because you are more in a state of expansion and your blood vessels are more dilating. It means you get better blood flow, better vascularization, and things like that. And I've observed this for myself, like I've gone very deep into pranayama, and I discovered one technique in there called kumbhaka, which is using your breath, holding your breath to create this state called intermittent hypoxia. And when you hold your breath for a certain period of time, you lower the oxygen in the bloodstream for a short period of time. This creates a hormetic, like positive stress response in the body, okay, which causes your body to adapt and grow stronger, because it believes that you're going to enter into a period of less oxygen if you just hold your breath in a certain way for a certain length of time. And what that does is it actually makes you produce more red blood cells. You get more efficient in using energy in the body, and it trains your mitochondria to become more efficient using oxygen. And then you get better vascularization, you get better blood flow, you get more blood flow to your brain, into your heart and other organs. And this is actually something that we're testing out a lot. We're seeing amazing anecdotal results in our community group, because I teach these techniques now. I'm very close friends with Wim Hof, who uses similar techniques.
Oh yes, he's been on the podcast as well. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's like a real life superhuman. He's a very close friend. I was just with him a couple of days ago, and there's all these yoga techniques. They should not be ignored by mainstream science. They need more awareness, and this is what I'm here to serve. And it's really as simple as just correcting your breathing. That's the first step towards creating more efficiency with your energy in your body.
Well, you will be pleased to hear that while I've been listening to you talk, and I'm sure a lot of other people have done this as well, I've been taking some very deep breaths. You've been making me I thought, I better have a deep breath or two, and it felt nice. So that's the first step, isn't it?
But it's not about deep breathing. So this is a misconception. It's not.
Oh, no, I thought I was going to live 3 years longer because of those 3 deep breaths I just took.
No. It's about becoming efficient using oxygen. In fact, what you want to become good at is training yourself to have carbon dioxide tolerance. Because as I said, carbon dioxide is a dilator. So if you can, firstly, you're going to train yourself. And the best sort of exercises are anaerobic exercises, and like functional isometric training or very high intensity interval training. These have all been shown now in numerous studies to be the best way to exercise, where you're creating oxygen efficiency in the body and carbon dioxide tolerance. Okay, what that will do is that will lead you to be able to breathe less over time. So it's not about deep breathing. Okay, deep breathing, the only real benefit of deep breathing, and you only need to do a few minutes a day, because you don't want to over deep breathe. If you do too much deep breathing, you get too much oxygen, you breathe out carbon dioxide, it causes tension. The only real benefit of deep breathing is that when you breathe, you actually move the lymphatic system. Okay, and we actually deep breathe at night because it helps us clear the cerebral spinal fluid, it helps drain all the toxins out of the system. But during the day, we shouldn't be deep breathing. We shouldn't be forcing ourselves to breathe more. No, we need to train ourselves to need to breathe less. Okay, and that's what I'm here to talk about.
Right.
And share. I know it sounds completely crazy and weird, but it's if the science is what you need to look at for the evidence.
Yeah. And in terms of the effect, I mean, how much of this breath work do you credit to your improvement in health?
Okay, I think it's hard to say like as a percentage or anything like that. I think it's part of a component of various factors. So the breathing is the most immediate way to switch off stress in your body, like breathing technique, extending your exhalation, chanting Om, for example. When you go Om, just extending your breath like that, it lowers the stress in the body. It switches on parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, when you breathe in through your nose rather than your mouth, and you train yourself to breathe through your nose, creates dilation in the body, expansion. All right. However, then you need to, once you've learned how to change your physiology just through breathing, what happens then is that you need then certain building blocks to repair damage. So with me, I had extreme damage in my colon, in my, the ulcers in the colon. So I actually as I started to open my mind by turning off the stress, because when you're really stressed, you close down, people close down. But when you de-stress, you start to think more clearly and you start to see things in a different way. You start to question reality a bit more, and you go and start reading deep into things rather than just believing everything that somebody says to you. So I started to go deep, and I realized actually that in Ayurveda, thousands and thousands of years ago, Ayurvedic doctors which is the Indian medical system, they would use this. They knew that with cows, there are two different types of milk. There's the first milk, which is called colostrum.
Yeah. And
actually, it's the first thing that we consume as babies from the mother. And that colostrum, what it does is it actually repairs. Well, I wouldn't say repair. It helps the calf to grow an efficient digestive system that allows them to eat adult food without a proper stomach being formed. Then the calf dies. Okay, so colostrum's super important. Same thing with humans, right? We need colostrum. The colostrum's important. It gives us an immune system. It helps us have a digestive system that allows us to eat adult food. So a lot of childhood diseases occur when companies like Nestle tell people that their powdered milk is better than what nature provides.
Yeah.
And this happened actually, and it was a disaster in Africa and places like that. So you can just read about that and you'll see it. So actually, what they also realize, the Ayurveda doctors, and this is why cows are worshipped like gods, is that the cow produces 4 times more than what the calf needs. It produces an excess of colostrum, so much of it. So it's almost like the cows were there to provide essential things to humans, okay? And that's why they worship cows. So what they did was they would take a little bit of the colostrum and they would use it as a treatment for because according to Ayurveda, all diseases start in the guts primarily, to fix the digestive system, okay? And I was reading all about this, and actually the Indian holy sweets were made by colostrum in the olden days. It all got changed when the British came in and industrialized everything, and now they use powdered milk and sugar as the ingredients. But before, it was like ghee, which is clarified butter, and colostrum. And these were like actually staple products. The Vedic kind of the Brahmin priests would consume this stuff, and it was a staple part of this tradition. But obviously we've been educated out of all of this over time, and we've forgotten what even colostrum is, and kids don't even know what it is, right? So this just blew my mind when I read about it, and I was like, right, I've got to try this. And I'm not kidding. I felt so much better, but I was still getting bleeding, okay? Like my stress levels were better. I was like moving around. I could go out the house. My bowel movements had definitely considerably reduced, all right, to like 5 or 6 rather than 40. But I was still bleeding a bit. Started taking colostrum. Within 2 weeks, boom, all the symptoms disappeared. And my weight came back. I was 40 kg, right? At this point.
Yeah.
I went back to my normal weight of like 65 kg. And it shocked everyone. Everyone was like, what on earth did you just do? And I started telling people about it, and I started to share it with other people, and many people with ulcerative colitis since I've helped, especially people with gut-related issues, IBS, all of this stuff. Yeah. I've seen incredible results with sharing colostrum.
I told you just before we started, I've taken colostrum before. I've actually recommended it on this podcast. I certainly found it helped with the gut, and I found it helped with allergies and with immunity as well. I actually took some this morning. My son's got a cold, and we were feeling like, maybe we're getting it as well. So we boshed a little bit of colostrum. Not the Renegade Pharmacist colostrum, but I'll have to try that. Just interrupting this podcast for one moment to remind you that it is brought to you by Sunlighten Saunas. And scientific studies have shown that not only do infrared saunas help with natural pain relief during treatment, but even after months of ending a sauna treatment, the pain is still significantly lower. Did you need more reasons to try a sauna, and specifically a Sunlighten sauna? I mean, if you need one more reason, I do have Netflix in there too. But perhaps that's a slightly shallow reason compared to the fact that your pain relief could be gone, or your pain could be relieved months after ending a sauna treatment. Check out Sunlighten Saunas, mention Zestology for £200, $200 off, and now back to the podcast. So you are a trained pharmacist?
Yes.
And I like that because you've obviously got quite a rigorous kind of scientific background. But then also what's happened is you've been forced to go into these areas that can't totally be explained by science. I mean, everything you're explaining about the breath, you actually made a very scientific case for why it's so important. And yet there's so much more to it than can be explained by science. I'm very left brain and not very right brain, and I find it hard to embrace things that aren't necessarily particularly logical. But then, of course, I do present a podcast about energy, and a lot of the way that energy works isn't particularly logical, I suppose, is it?
Exactly. Yeah. Quantum science is, which is the emerging field, is extremely irrational and non-linear. The problem we have right in this day and age is that most science is based on reductionist science and correlation and causation, all of that stuff. You know, it's the reason why there's so many harmful drugs on the market, why there's preposterous ideas creating mass hysteria in the world about this and that based on one single study without going deep and actually looking at real facts. And that's things like statins on the market because of this, that people don't go deep anymore. People don't actually do the research. They just trust what doctors think. And remember, doctors are frigging busy. Most of them are so tired, they're overwhelmed with paperwork. They don't study anymore. They don't go out and read papers. They just take whatever the drug rep comes as face value, and they get brainwashed by it. So the whole system, the scientific system, has really, really gone corrupt. Unfortunately, I find it hard to trust anything that the media is claiming out there right now about a lot of issues. So I have to go deep. So I always look to both sides of the argument. Then I always do this one simple rule. Go and find, if you want to find a result, go and find people who have cured them. Say you want to cure yourself or something, find somebody who's actually cured themselves of that and just start to copy what they do. And you'll see that quite often what they're doing is totally the opposite of what the mainstream is telling you to do. And then you start to wake up and you start to realize that how much of reality has been conditioned and brainwashed by a lot of different corporate interests and political interests. And then you start to take a deep breath and you start to realize that actually we need to start thinking for ourselves again. We need to educate ourselves. We shouldn't be wasting time watching mindless stuff on Netflix if you want to get smart. We need to smarten up, and we need to man up. We need to get strong and bring back the spirit.
I quite like Netflix every once in a while, though, Niraj.
I like Netflix too. Yeah.
Come on, every once in a while. We're allowed a bit of Netflix. Friday night, Netflix.
Those box sets are super addictive, man. I can't watch them.
But, it's interesting. I mean, you're right about thinking for ourselves. I was listening to an interview with Dr. David Sinclair recently, who is one of the world's top experts on longevity and has devoted his life's work to researching longevity. And he said he takes a very high dose of statins every day and has done since he's 20 because there's heart disease in his family. And so nothing is ever black and white, and nothing is ever cut and dried. You have to kind of do your own research and decide. But I was very surprised that he took statins, because a lot of the other stuff that he talks about, I kind of find a little bit anti-establishment and kind of resonates with me. But making your own mind up about things is important.
So remember, he has a funny condition that gives him a much more. I know about this. He gives him much more risk factor for heart disease.
Right.
And it's a rare thing. Very few people have that. In fact, you can use things like red rice yeast to create the same result, which also contains a natural form of statin. But most people are not like that. Most people don't have his lifestyle. He does a lot of other things that most people just can't afford to do. He takes so many different types of supplements that most people can't afford. And here's the thing, there's no one size fits all. So the problem with mass prescription and mandatory prescriptions of things, and because it's based on reduction science, is that it puts people in this box saying that there's an average and that you must normalize everyone to that average. This is the biggest mistake that has happened in the world, and that's why there's so much overprescribing, because humans are not rational, they're irrational. There's a lot of people who have high cholesterol who are completely fine. There's a lot of people who have high blood pressure who live for a very long age. Gandhi, for example, his blood pressure, right, was 200 over 100 most of his life. All right. What did he die of? He died of a bullet in his head in his 80s. Okay. So there's a lot of things out there that don't make sense
and don't correlate. You're right. There's no one size fits all. And then, so are you based in London?
I'm just outside London in Berkshire, in Reading.
Okay, good. And well, I mean, do you ever do kind of workshops and stuff like that? I think I must come to one and take part a little bit more.
Yeah, well, actually, I just did one a couple of weeks ago, but I tend to live in Spain. It's a bit more sunnier, and Thailand.
Terrific.
We do retreats there. You're more than welcome to join one of those, or we can hang out and I'll come and meet you in London. I'll show you some stuff.
That'd be really great. Yeah, we went and recorded, me and my partner, we went to Thailand last year for a month, and I'd been to Koh Phangan as a fresh-faced 20-year-old. I'm ashamed to say that I went to 6 full moon parties many years ago.
Wow.
I know.
I made
Yeah,
it to
yeah,
one. I
yeah.
made it to one.
Well, one is enough. One is enough. But they were a lot of fun. But times have changed. But anyway, this
Yeah.
time we there's a real different side to the north of Koh Phangan, isn't there? There's this incredible kind of slightly hippy dippy, open minded community where people are trying out lots of different healing styles and techniques. It was great fun. We recorded a couple of podcasts there. I think we were in Sri Tanu or something like that. What a great place.
Oh, that's the place. Sri Tana, that's my home.
Oh, is it? Is it really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the best place on the planet.
Yeah, and we met people probably like you who go for months at a time. I met this one guy who was he is a punter in Germany, so he punts boats down rivers, and and basically by its very nature it's completely lopsided. Constantly he holds the punt on his right, and it's for 7 months he's basically doing this very strenuous work which is one-sided, and then he goes for 5 months to Sri Tanu and gets a massage every day to sort his back out.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I think you know a friend of mine there as well, Brett Moran.
Yes, you know Brett.
Yeah, he's my bro, man. He's cool.
Oh,
He's
great.
awesome.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, well,
That's right.
obviously Brett's been on the podcast. I think he's in London next week, and he's popping over here at that point. So,
Cool.
it's a small world, isn't it, over there? And it's a great life. How long do you spend over there then?
I'm there for at least 6 months of the year, sometimes more. But we're actually looking to create a base. I want to create a resort there.
Yeah.
We're looking for land at the moment, but also I want to create a base in Spain. I have some amazing people who have joined our company Soma in order to help create more awareness for it. And the next logical step is to have a base where we bring people to these incredible experiences and teach people these methods and tools. So that's in the pipeline.
That's brilliant, Niraj. It's really good to talk to you as well. We'll definitely have to get together and try some of this stuff out in more detail.
I'll show you some stuff.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, preferably in Thailand. Listen, one question I ask everyone is, what is one book that you would recommend and one tip for living with more energy, vitality and motivation?
Okay, brilliant. So my favorite book, and I urge everyone in our community to read, it's an old book called Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Robert Anton Wilson was part of the whole kind of hippie, free-thinking, liberal movement that happened in the 60s when LSD emerged. And Timothy Leary was his good friend. And what happened was took some of the best kind of free-thinking, liberal people at the time, really smart people's work, and he made it he wrote it in a way that was much more easy to understand. So if you really want to learn about what it means to be enlightened, where your thoughts come from, how reality is shaped by so much more than you think, and actually what kind of religions have been trying to teach us but have become dogmatized, and basically in a nutshell, how to unrobotize yourself and to reprogram yourself to be much more in your element, in your flow, to discover your true will, who you truly are, your real life's purpose. What I've done is I've taken a lot of that work and made it very, very easy and accessible and easy to understand through our courses. Because I think this is the one thing that's the biggest problem in the world, is the robotization of human beings, where people don't think for themselves. They're overstressed, overworked, and they're following kind of programs and habits that are creating a repetitive cycle without evolution. And if people want to evolve and they want to thrive rather than just survive, then I really urge people to start reading some amazing books like that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out. What about one tip then for living with more energy?
Okay, this is really simple. And again, the tips I give are not going to be take this pill and you're going to get more energy. No, it all comes down to your beliefs. Okay, and you got to ask yourself this question every single morning. All right. If you wake up feeling like, well, you got to ask yourself the question: am I waking up today with absolute enthusiasm to do a hard day's work, or am I waking up like feeling like you have to do this in order to just fit in and survive? All right. And ask yourself this: are you waking up every morning feeling like you really want to be compassionate and be kind to other people, or are you just feeling like you're having to do this just to survive? You really are full of hate and kind of despair and things like that. The answers to those questions will determine whether you get chronic stress or not. So as soon as you start, this should be the warning for everyone. That is, as soon as you start to question like what you're doing every single day, and you start losing your inspiration, your joy, your passion for things, that's the moment your energy levels get zapped. You start to paralyze, you start to contract, you don't get the energy to do the things you really want to do. So when you do find that thing that really makes you tick, you get some kind of weird cosmic energy force that drives you at an unstoppable rate towards your goals or wherever it is you want to achieve. And it's when you find that element, that thing that makes you tick, that's, I think, is the purpose of life, the meaning of life, is to find that thing that puts you in this unstoppable state of flow.
Niraj, fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on Zestology. I feel more in unstoppable flow just chatting. And
Nice.
Where can people find out more about you or your work as the Renegade Pharmacist and everything else you do?
Great. So we have two websites. We have therenegadepharmacist.com, and there you can also find our brand of Colostrum. We also have somabreath.com, which is our online school of breathing techniques, meditation, and it's extremely popular at the moment. So I really urge people to jump on that, because we have an amazing community. And actually just finding your community of like-minded people can do wonders to your energy levels. Just finding that community of people who have the same shared interests. And that's what I'm building. I really believe that community is the cure. You know, like women and me are very similar like that. We're very community people. We're very community driven. Koh Phangan is a very community driven place.
Yeah.
You know, so I really want to spread a little bit taste of Thailand to the rest of the world, because I think that's going to solve a lot of the problems that we have.
Great stuff. Niraj, congratulations on everything you're doing, and thanks for coming on Zestology.
And thank you, and you keep up the good work too. Doing amazing stuff.
That's it for this Zestology. Thank you for listening. Thanks to Niraj. One of the things that I've been doing whilst I've been here is listening back to one of my podcasts from last week, actually, with Gloria Mark, just because I think it was a really nice reminder when you look forward to something a lot, like a holiday, it's a nice reminder to remember to switch off, get rid of the digital clutter and the distraction, and stay in the moment and do one thing at a time. So while I record this, my phone is in airplane mode, because it'd be a shame to be sitting on this lovely beach and checking my phone at the same time. I mean, I am recording a podcast intro, but I kind of quite like doing that. If I was checking Instagram at the same time, that wouldn't be so cool, I don't think. So if you haven't heard Gloria Mark last week, I think she was, she's quite a big name, and I was really chuffed that she came on Zestology and came up with some good reminders as well. Okay, that's it. Have an excellent week. I will. Here for sure, possibly even a rum punch or two, which may give you a clue as to where I am. And I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening, as always, to Zestology.